A lizard named after a deity. A rodent that you can't look at without smiling. A small predator with a very deceptive appearance, and more. In this episode, you'll see the most unusual animals living in deserts. Let's go! We'll start with a photo shared by a subscriber. He said that he personally was a participant of excavations in Africa where they encountered this horrible creature, similar to a worm. Fortunately for everyone, it was dead and didn't harm people in any way, but the fact that such a monster existed on our planet not so long ago doesn't allow anyone to remain calm. People simultaneously split into two camps. Some said that they'd heard of such monsters. Allegedly, they annoyed our ancestors and stole their livestock. Others have not lost skepticism and remain confident that all this is a fake. What do you think? Share your opinion on this photo in the comments. Thorny Devil. In fact, even if this giant monster did exist in the past, something tells me that it was not extremely dangerous. In life, it often happens as follows. Huge creatures behave calmly and kindly, and small ones are aggressive and attack everybody. One of the small ones, which should be feared, is the Thorny Devil. This is a lizard found in the desert. It's also known as Moloch, and it got its name from the deity to whom, according to legends, human sacrifices were offered. Apparently, the Thorny Devil decided not to let its divine great-grandfather down and confidently settled in the Australian sandy hell where there are no other deities but itself. The main feature of the lizard is its ubiquitous sharp outgrowths. It doesn't need them for beauty. The lizard uses them to protect itself from local monitor lizards and birds. If they look at it suspiciously, the lizard simply walks toward them and thus drives them away. However, the Thorny Devil doesn't like to take risks. At the hint of danger, it almost always literally plunges headlong into the study of the local soil, ending the conflict between predator and prey. Pharaoh Eagle Owl. Alpha predator, what's it like? Probably huge with long fangs and some kind of venom, right? In general, a creature with such characteristics would definitely become an alpha, but in nature there are other examples when this title was received by creatures of a completely other type. One of these is the Pharaoh Eagle Owl. It became an alpha only because it simply has no competitors in nature. At the same time, the owl itself is not the most outstanding representative of the feathered creatures. A modest, cream-spotted body of the bird is no more than 20 inches long, and the weight rarely exceeds 4 pounds. However, even with such characteristics, the animal managed to become the dominant predator in its territory. But how did it manage to do this? What kind of territory is this? It's simple. The bird moved to the deserts. There, among the bare, wind-worn rocks and stony wasteland, the bird feels itself a king because others feel only unbearable heat. It chooses a mate for life and flies happily. It eats bugs, scorpions, and scouts the area at night. Black-footed cat. And what else likes to walk in the desert in the middle of the night is the very dangerous black-footed cat. You may ask me, do you really want to say that this cute kitten is at least some kind of danger? Are you out of your mind? Wait. Don't forget that appearances can be deceiving, and this is just such a case. The black-footed cat is one of the most dangerous members of the animal world in the desert in general. This cutie is responsible for the deaths of at least 10 to 15 animals every night. It's not for nothing, its diet includes more than 50 species of creatures, and among them there are even those that are several times larger than this kitty. As for its size, the length of females usually doesn't exceed 18 inches, while males are up to 20 inches long. Black-footed cats weigh no more than 5.5 pounds. Along with the tiny size, their deep, wide eyes can also confuse you. Their eyes are just like those of Puss in Boots. However, nature gave them these eyes not for fun, but for the purpose of improved night hunting. Behind the retina of the eye, there's a special vascular layer that performs the function of a reflector, which is necessary for high-quality night vision. It increases the visual ability and causes a bright blue glow of the eyes at night. Such amazing vision, combined with incredible hearing, make the black-footed cat an impeccable hunter from which no one, even the quietest animal, can hide. But even taking into account all that was said earlier, life in the African wasteland is not easy for this beast. There's often not enough water, so the black-footed cat has learned to extract it directly from the bodies of its prey. Dama gazelle. Did you call the biggest gazelle? It came straight from the very center of the Sahara, not having any special adaptation to the hot sands. The body length of this beauty can reach up to 5.5 feet, with a height of 4 feet and a weight of 198 pounds. The Dama gazelle has a yellow or reddish-brown color, but the main feature of the animal is obviously the horns. They have a pleasant and unusual curve, which at the same time does not complicate their life and also allows them to hunt faster and easier. But no matter how good a hunter you are, in addition to food, you also need water. And the Dama gazelle has some difficulties with this. The fact is that it hasn't learned to retain fluid in its body like many other desert dwellers. Because of this, it needs a lot of moisture. And since there's not much of it here, these gazelles often die of thirst. But how is it possible? Why did the creature settle in the desert and not adapt to its conditions? In fact, it didn't happen by the will of the Dama gazelle. Its habitat has been limited to deserts only recently. It's difficult for them to adapt to these conditions, so there's always a chance that the next season of drought may be the last, not only for some individuals but for the species as a whole. Statistics are a direct confirmation of this. Over the last decade, the Dama gazelle population has decreased by 80%. Look at the way it looks like. It's just a bag of bones. Is it a skinny mongrel or what? It's actually an Arabian wolf, a small subspecies of the gray wolf. Adult animals weigh, on average, 44 pounds. Common wolves weigh many times that. The predators behave accordingly. They eat everything that at least smells like food, steal, roam, and try not to starve to death. And they survive very well. Unlike Dama gazelles, they had time to adapt to the new living conditions and consciously reduced in size. The fact is, they simply needed to cool down as quickly as possible after a long time under the sun. In addition, the wolves followed another interesting rule, according to which their paws and other protruding organs have become larger than those of the inhabitants of colder regions. Thus, they dissipate heat and cool the body much more quickly and efficiently. And now let's talk about the common gundi, about these cute and funny rodents from distant deserts which resorted to an extremely strange method of survival. You'll learn about it a little later. So let's start with the fact that the animal can easily be confused with a guinea pig. They both have beady eyes, ears on the top of their heads, and they both weigh about 7 ounces. In short, the gundi looks like a typical rodent, but there's very little rodent in it. Most real rodents have iron in their enamel. The gundi lacks it, so chew solid food can easily break its teeth. But don't worry about its safety. This animal's not stupid. It doesn't eat harmful and solid food and prefers to eat plants. Why? It's a good option. Plants both nourish the body of this beautiful beast and at the same time enrich it with moisture. So well, in fact, that the gundi has learned not to drink water at all. The liquid waste is concentrated to the point where they hardly remove any water from its body. However, no matter how interesting this peculiarity may be, the main trick of the creature is the following. During the day when it's hot outside, the gundi hides in the shade and cools off. And with the onset of evening, it gets cold enough and it begins to cuddle with its congeners. These animals stack themselves on top of each other and fall asleep, or just rest in such a tight position. Did you know that there are woodlice in deserts? I used to think that this phrase was impossible to say. Nevertheless, it's true. And woodlice not just settle in deserts, but play a crucial role for them. After all, during the construction of their houses, that is, during what they do almost all their lives, they leave feces on the surface. And it's with their help that the soil is fertilized quite well and improves the vegetation in the whole area. As for the rest, desert woodlice are ordinary crustaceans that got used to living on land and are used to hiding somewhere in a hole, which they themselves build. They live in families and carefully watch their surroundings, so much so that each of their houses has its own guard, letting in only those which emit the appropriate pheromones. And now I'll tell you about some really resilient creatures. The most resilient ones. When I told you about the mysterious arthropod of the past, I mentioned the fact that it adapts quite well to the cave climate. It seems that the animal from our next story heard this and decided to show who the real king of survival in hellish conditions is here. I'm talking about a not-so-long discovered species of tardigrades found in Finland. Here's a fun fact. These creatures are named after the snake from the Harry Potter franchise with their amazing resilience and survivability. As you may recall, Nagini was only finished off with the sword of Gryffindor soaked with basilisk venom. And okay, in the movie I could somehow understand it. No matter how I looked at it, the snake was big and it was magical, but our guests are at most 1.5 millimeters long. They have only a few sharp needle teeth in their mouths, which they use to bite into plants or other prey. Large tardigrades can eat rotifers, nematode worms, and even other tardigrades. Because of their phenomenal resilience, they're widespread across the globe, from the mountaintops of the Himalayas to the depths of the sea. They're carried by the wind, water, and animals. Most of all, they love freshwater reservoirs and wet lichens. Nevertheless, despite their microscopic size, the new tardigrades are able to live anywhere, and above all to survive where all others would perish. I'll now list a small part of what scientists have done to these creatures. So that you understand, I'll say at once that the test subjects passed all the tests with flying colors. They were frozen for 20 years at a temperature of -4 degrees Fahrenheit. They were also kept in liquid oxygen at a temperature of -315 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 months. The tardigrades were able to withstand 8 hours of cooling with liquid helium to a temperature of -455 degrees Fahrenheit, and heating to a temperature of 140 to 149 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 hours. They were able to withstand a temperature of 212 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour. Scientists tried to destroy the tardigrades with ionizing radiation. The dose of 570,000 rem managed to kill only half the test subjects. For comparison, a person dies at a dose of 500 rem. Also, Japanese biophysicists conducted an experiment in which the creatures were placed in a water-filled high-pressure chamber. People gradually brought the pressure to 6,000 atmospheres and most of the tardigrades stayed alive. Could it be some kind of alien creature? I don't believe that Mother Nature could have created such resilient creatures. Phew! While I was talking about the survivability of tardigrades, I got kind of hungry. Now I'd like to eat some tasty shrimp. It'd be great. Too bad they're all kind of the same. You can't buy anything unusual. Or can you? Think of yourself as for who will sell them to you. But the fact remains, quite recently, a new species of shrimp, the so-called skeleton shrimp, was introduced to the world. These animals look like fairy tale creatures and, of course, are one of the most beautiful in the whole world. If anyone wants to go out in search of them, go to the cave on Santa Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California. The female shrimp is about 0.09 inches long, and the male shrimp is about 0.1 inches long, so be sure to arm yourself with a magnifying glass. Nimba myotis. The story of the discovery of the following creature is quite simple and at the same time interesting. The people of West Africa were wondering how they could keep the bat population alive. Their usual habitat was noticeably damaged, so the community decided to start looking for a new home for these creatures. Pretty quickly, people stumbled upon some abandoned mine and thought it was a suitable option. Now, imagine their surprise when they realized they'd killed 2 birds with 1 stone. They found a place for bats and discovered a new species of these creatures. They called it Nimba myotis. It's quite easy to distinguish its representatives from the rest because the new ones have orange fur. It's not yet been possible to understand how rare this species is, what role it plays in the ecosystem and stuff. It takes time. But don't worry, scientists are engaging in this process. We'll wait for news in a year or 2. Nano-chameleon. But what scientists would not find, even if they examined the cave with a portable microscope, is the nano-chameleon. This little creature was found in Madagascar. It's the smallest known chameleon and probably the smallest reptile in the world. The body length of an adult male is only half an inch long from the tip of the snout to the cloaca. Unfortunately, the mountain forests in which the nanochameleon lives are rapidly disappearing under the onslaught of agriculture. So the future of the miniature reptile is extremely uncertain. Let's keep our fingers crossed for the chameleon. Tapir frog. Remember how I compared the tardigrades to the snake from the Harry Potter movies? Well, apparently J.K. Rowling, the British writer and author of the world-famous series of novels about the young wizard, knew something. How else to explain the resemblance of a previously unknown to science creature to the chocolate frogs from her book? This time, I'm talking about a creature found in the Putumayo River basin in Peru. Representatives of this species reach a length of 0.7 inches and have brown skin with a cream-colored belly. Thanks to its special body size, the tapir frog easily digs burrows. Researchers were only able to discover these animals because of their distinctive voices the creatures use to communicate. Let's now take a look at the most dangerous reptile in the world – Komodo dragon. Even the very name of this creature suggests that it's extremely dangerous. Indeed, how can a dragon be harmless? There's another name for this monster – the Komodo monitor. It's the largest lizard on the planet and also one of the largest reptiles in the world. Komodo dragons can grow up to 13 feet in length and more and weigh over 280 pounds. For this reason, they're dangerous to almost any living creature in their range on the Indonesian islands. Due to the fact that Komodo dragons can be neighbors with humans, they often get into battles with domestic dogs. If there are many dogs, they can stand up to the lizard, but if the dog's alone, it'll likely be finished. The best option for a dog in such a confrontation is simply to run. And one has to run fast because Komodo dragons can reach speeds of up to 12 miles per hour. And yet, these dragons are not more interested in dogs. Far more often, they encounter goats, for example. Look at how it looks like. In just a few seconds, the Komodo dragon is able to neutralize an enemy and then eat it whole. Same goes for monkeys that have been long afraid of these giant lizards. After all, the primates are powerless in a fight with them. Komodo dragons quickly neutralize monkeys, after which they eat them whole, sometimes even alive. This all looks epic, but such abilities of the Komodo dragon are not surprising. After all, the lizard's very large. Speaking of which, it can also engage in a battle with a larger opponent such as the local buffalo. The buffalo's larger than the lizard, but working even in a small group, Komodo dragons can finish off an adult. However, this rarely happens. Buffaloes know about the strength of Komodo dragons and their venom, so they try not to mess with them. In general, the Komodo dragon can be rightly called an extremely dangerous reptile. Only large crocodiles can pose a threat to them. By the way, which animal would you bet on in such a fight? Write in the comments. Well, we move on to another dangerous reptile, the snake. I'm sure you all know about anacondas, black mambas, rattlesnakes, and so on, but have you ever heard of the saw-scaled viper? If not, I suggest you remember the name as well as the snake's appearance itself. It may not be as well known as the black mamba or the king cobra, but in many ways it's more dangerous, at least because it's considered the deadliest snake on the planet. More people in the world die from its bites each year than from the bites of any other snake. The saw-scaled viper can be called noble. When encountering a person, it doesn't attack them immediately. It gives a person a chance to be saved. At first, the saw-scaled viper begins to make a loud rustling sound. This is it rubbing the jagged rings. Along with this, the saw-scaled viper begins to twist and wriggle. At this moment, it's better to move away, as far away as possible. Otherwise, the saw-scaled viper will attack and bite you, and the consequences will be terrible. The saw-scaled viper's venom can act in different ways. Sometimes it reduces blood clotting and the victim dies of blood loss. And sometimes the venom thickens the blood, turning it into jelly, which also leads to death. Every fifth person bitten by the saw-scaled viper becomes a victim. But fortunately, people can at least be saved by an antidote. Animals, on the other hand, cannot be saved. The saw-scaled viper can deal with many creatures, from rodents, birds, and frogs to dangerous spiders. Its diet includes a bunch of creatures, making this snake a truly creepy creature. Alligator snapping turtle. This turtle is called the alligator snapping one for a reason. Its teeth are truly like those of an alligator. See for yourself how this reptile uses its teeth. In the blink of an eye, it can bite anything in half. Watermelon and pineapple, corn and carrots. It can tear off a piece of an apple and even bite through a closed soda can. Here, it even ruined the phone in no time, though it's not clear why people gave it a smartphone. But anyway, the point's clear. You shouldn't put your finger in this turtle's mouth. It'll bite it off in no time. It deservedly got its name. In addition, the turtle is also quite aggressive. It can attack people itself, and it's better not to put anything under its jaws. However, people are not as interesting to it as you might think. Still, its diet consists of aquatic animals. First of all, fish. It hunts them quite effectively and interestingly. The turtle lies on the bottom with its mouth open and puts out a worm-like tip of its tongue, colored bright pink. The wriggling worm serves as bait for the fish, which swim up trying to grab it and immediately get caught in the powerful jaws of the turtle. Although the jaws of the alligator snapping turtle are truly powerful, they do not compare to the jaws and teeth of the next animal of this episode, the saltwater crocodile. This giant is also called the sea crocodile, or just salty. Yes, unlike its relatives, it feels good in saltwater, can also live in freshwater, and spend time on the shore. In general, only birds are safe, because the saltwater monster eats everyone else without hesitation. Incredible size of more than 16 feet in length, weight of more than a ton, the most powerful bite in the animal world, thick skin, and insane aggression make this reptile the most dangerous on the planet. The saltwater crocodile can devour a chicken, and in an hour it can deal with a pig. The next day it can attack a kangaroo, and in the evening it can fight with a tiger. On the third day, a shark can be beaten, which the giant will eat entirely. And in another day, the crocodile can engage in a fight with its congener, and then go scare people. Literally, all water bodies in Southeast Asia are dangerous because these crocodiles are masters of camouflage and attack. You never know where this monster will be waiting and when it will attack. Gila monster. This American lizard has terrified not only animals but also humans for centuries. Long ago, Native Americans believed that the Gila monster was so toxic and dangerous that its breath could kill a person or infect them with a serious disease. Of course, this isn't true, but Gila monsters are still very dangerous. At the very least, these monsters are dangerous to animals. The Gila monster can easily deal with many animals. For example, it can eat a rabbit. This is its favorite dish. Also, Gila monsters eat mice and squirrels, engage in battles with dogs, and can even face a venomous snake without fear. However, this monster is not particularly voracious. It eats no more than 10 times a year, most of the time digesting its food as if it were a snake. It won't eat a human, but it can bite one. The bite can be fatal, but the good news is that Gila monsters are slow enough so you can have time to spot them and easily get away from them even on foot. The fact that many reptiles are extremely dangerous is known to all of you, but this isn't all that can be told about them. For example, did you know that reptiles have a third eye? And what's it for? Which reptiles shoot venom? And how does the ambient temperature affect the sex of reptiles? Stay tuned to find out this and more. How do reptiles inject their venom into their prey? Of course, they bite it. Everyone knows that. But not all reptiles do that. There are, for example, spitting cobras, which prefer to transmit the toxin through spitting. They literally shoot venom at their prey, trying to aim for the eyes. If the venom reaches its target, it blinds the prey and causes it to suffer pain. After that, the reptile can finish off the weakened enemy in the traditional way by simply biting it. You've all heard about the third eye, that very mysterious symbol of conspiracy. But the third eye is not such a mystery because many reptiles have it. For example, Tatara lizards. And no, that doesn't mean that these lizards are reptilioids. Third eye is sensitive to light and allows the cold-blooded reptiles not to overheat and not to freeze. After all, reptiles don't regulate their body temperature themselves. It depends on the environment. Temperature, in general, plays an important role in the life of reptiles. Even the sex of the creature depends on it. Take crocodiles, for example. If the ambient temperature is 86 degrees Fahrenheit and below, a female will be born. If it's 91 degrees Fahrenheit and above, a male will be born. If the values average, both females and males in equal proportion can hatch. And finally, let's talk a little about the eyes. The shape of the pupil in reptiles varies. For example, in turtles, the pupil is round and looks like a hole. Nocturnal snakes and crocodiles have a vertical pupil. Some snakes have a horizontal pupil, but some geckos have the most incredible pupil of all reptiles. In some species, the pupil shrinks to form a series of holes, one above the other. It reminds me of a keyhole. And what about you? What does the pupil of geckos remind you of? Let me know in the comments. Also, share other facts about reptiles. Thanks for watching, and see you later.